Same prestige is bringing you into the world of alfresco motoring. The car we're about to show you is the perfect vehicle to enjoy the Italian sunshine on a Sunday as you glide across the Tuscan hills to the soundtrack of a Maranello-built V12. Welcome to the world of the 2000 Ferrari 550 Barchetta Pininfarina. The 550 Barchetta is a special edition Ferrari based on the 550 Maranello, which was produced from 1997 to 2001. The 550 Maranello might just look like another Ferrari, as the front-engine V12 two-seater layout seems like an obvious product out of Ferrari's hometown of Maranello. But that wasn't the case for over 20 years. The last product Ferrari created with this GT layout before the 550 was the 1973 Ferrari 365 GTB/4, or as many of you enthusiasts at home know it, the Ferrari Daytona. Ferrari decided after the glorious Daytona that front-engine V12s were no longer the ideal layout for their top-of-the-line GT cars, and replaced the 365 GTB/4 with the mid-engine Berlinetta Boxer. Ferrari still made front-engine V12 cars with 2+2 configurations, but they were rather sad, forgettable pieces, like the 400i that paired its Ferrari V12 engine with a 3-speed General Motors automatic transmission. This mid-engined ideology continued on with the Ferrari Testarossa. However, in 1991, Ferrari brought on Luca Codero de Montezemolo as their new CEO. Not only did Luca bring Ferrari's Formula One team back to glory with the signing of Michael Schumacher and a 5-peat Drivers' Championship win streak from the 2000s to the 2004 season, but Luca also revitalized the road-going Stallions with the much-needed 355 to replace the lackluster 348 and brought back the iconic GT recipe of a front-mounted V12 engine and 2 seats. Thus, the Ferrari 550 Maranello was born. Most of the cars we featured on Inside the Lab have a sophisticated carbon fiber monocoque chassis, but the 550 is a bit more old school. The car was built on a tubular steel frame, and the body panels were crafted from an aluminum alloy. Ferrari used a special material called Furan that allowed for the welding of different metals, and it aided in placing the aluminum body on the steel chassis. Not only did Ferrari depart from its mid-engine layout for its GT cars, but they also departed from the flat 12 engine design as well. The new 5.5-liter V12 engine was considered a masterpiece, with the block and head crafted from aluminum, along with 4 valves per cylinder, dual overhead cams, dry sump lubrication, and 12 electro-pneumatic valves that worked with a variable length intake manifolds that helped create power smoothly throughout the rev range. The 550 Maranello developed 485 horsepower at 7,000 RPM and 420 pounds-feet of torque at 5,000 RPM. The 550 was also born during an era where the displacement of the engine was accurately reflected by the nomenclature of the car. Thus, with its 5.5-liter V12 engine, the Ferrari 550 received its name. The only gearbox available for the 550 Maranello was a rear-mounted, aluminum-gated 6-speed manual transmission. The 550's power was then sent to the rear wheels via a mechanical locking differential to help plant its 485 Italian Stallions to the road to reach 0 to 62 miles an hour in 4.4 seconds. Fun fact! This was the last V12 Ferrari with a manual as the only option, which of course explains the market's significant appreciation for these vehicles. It's true that customers could expect the following V12 GT cars like the 575, the 612, and the 599 with manual gearboxes, but those gated manuals were an option, and with most clients opting for the F1 automatic transmission, those cars are also quite rare. But then again, so is this 550 Barchetta. Just over 3,000 Maranellos were made from 1997 to 2001, but Ferrari only produced 448 Barchettas worldwide. Unveiled at the Paris Motor Show in the year 2000, the 550 Barchetta Pininfarina is a special edition Ferrari created to honor the 70th anniversary of their design partner and coach builder, Pininfarina. Even though this relationship no longer stands, as the F12 Berlinetta was the last Ferrari to wear the Pininfarina name, The 550 Barchetta is a stunning car that echoes to the classic GT designs that Pininfarina helped craft in the 1960s and 70s. The side vents hint to previous V12 Ferraris, like the 275 GTB, and the tail lamp design was inspired by the Daytona. Even though the overall design of the 550 Maranello was considered a bit derivative at the time with its classic sports car looks, I think that's allowed for the car to age wonderfully, especially in this Barchetta form. The hood is long, the rear deck is short, and there's no roof. But chopping the roof off wasn't enough to make the 550 Maranello seem like a coach-built Barchetta. Ferrari and Pininfarina also lowered the windscreen about 4 inches for a more dramatic low-slung look, and painted a section of the A-pillars to make them seem thinner. The duo also fitted leather-wrapped fixed roll hoops, 2-piece magnesium alloy wheels with a delicious amount of dish, and an aluminum gas filler cap. Fun fact! The Italian word Barchetta translates directly to little boat. The term was first used to describe the Ferrari 166mm in a 1948 Italian newspaper. The Barchetta name caught on and has been used to describe 2-seat, open-top Italian automobiles ever since. Even though Ferrari reinforced the chassis to compensate for the lack of a roof structure on the Barchetta, Ferrari claims the hardtop and the Barchetta weigh the exact same, as there's no folding roof mechanism to add weight. The Barchetta does include an emergency top for when the weather gets gloomy, but don't attempt any high-speed runs as it only works up to 70 miles an hour. Overall, the curb weight of the 550 Barchetta Pininfarina is 3,726 pounds. Because this car hails from the 90s, the A-pillars are strong enough to support a crash roll, but aren't so thick that you can't see what's coming around the corner. The top of the doors rests below the height of your shoulders, providing this sleek look that not only adds to the overall sporty design, but also makes the driver feel as though this Grand GT is a lot smaller than it really is. The Scuderia shields were an optional extra on the Maranello, but are stock on the Barchetta. Fun fact on the Scuderia shields. These iconic shields started as a token of good luck. In 1923, when Enzo Ferrari himself was racing for Alfa Romeo, he was approached by the parents of a World War I pilot. They told Enzo that their son had the horse painted on the fuselage of his plane, and that if Ferrari placed the prancing horse on his race cars, that they would bring him good luck. Enzo added the canary yellow background to honor his hometown of Magna, the letters of S and F for Scuderia Ferrari, and thus the legendary Scuderia shields were born into existence. Even though the 550 is an old school GT, its suspension is surprisingly modern. The 550 is equipped with independent suspension with front and rear anti-roll bars. The 550 sits on coaxial coil springs, and the aluminum gas dampers are electronically adjustable with variable modes that can be controlled in the cockpit with the push of the sport button. This configuration gives the 550 a fairly sporty ride, with an air of agility that you might not expect from a GT, and that makes the 550 feel smaller than it really is. Fun fact, the front track, which is the distance from the center point of one wheel to the center point of another wheel on the same axle, measures 1,632 millimeters on the 550, which is wider than the rear track, which measures in at 1,586 millimeters. This is not a typical design for Ferrari, but it does aid the 550 in braking performance as well as decreasing its turning radius. The exterior is defined by its classic sports car looks, and the interior further complements the 550's GT abilities. Ferrari describes the driving position in the 550 as ergonomically perfect, and I truly can't fault them. Even though the seat is backed in carbon, it's still comfortable and places you low in the cabin, so you can have your feet ready for some heel-toe action on those awesome drilled pedals. The clutch is more on the heavy side, but it has a progressive feel that never feels grabby. Pair that with a torquey V12 engine and a gated 6-speed manual, and the result is a car that's enjoyable at low speeds and exhilarating at high speeds. Having to shift gears manually may seem like a novelty item that enthusiasts love to drone on about, but it's for a reason. You feel engaged and more connected at all speeds, and even though the 550 isn't as fast as modern Ferraris, it can be just as exciting because of that gated manual gearbox. And just in case you forgot the credentials of the aforementioned legendary racing team, Ferrari placed a plaque on the right side of the cabin, celebrating their 2000 season Formula One championship victory. The buttonless steering wheel is sourced from Momo, and it feels great in your hands as you come to find that the steering is light and tactile. It's just another small factor that makes the 550 Barchetta feel like it can fit in the palm of your hand, even though it's almost 15 feet long. Another aspect that I really love on the 550 Barchetta are these Jaeger dials that have this wonderful vintage look to them. It's a small detail, but I would just love to stare at them for miles on end as I watch the revs rise and fall on an epic road trip. The dash and center tunnel are dressed in a faux suede material, and the interior is dressed with bits of carbon fiber that were truly a treat in the early 2000s. Just behind the gated shifter, you'll find a plaque with the Barchetta vehicle number, along with what seems to be the signature from Scuderia Pininfarina. When comparing the 550's key to a modern Ferrari fob, one can appreciate how small and understated this key is, as opposed to the huge pocket flex that the modern fob is. After clicking the immobilizer, inserting your key into the ignition, and depressing the clutch, you're not greeted by a shouty howl from the V12, but rather a refined and civilized startup. The 550's V12 doesn't scream for its presence to be known, and there's an old-fashioned hum from the valve train as it ticks away. However, getting the 550's V12 to sing its Italian symphony is no trouble at all, as one simply blips the throttle and they're greeted by one of Maranello's finest soundtracks. When we first received this car, not only did I fall for its stunning looks, but I also fell in love with the character of the car. After dealing with a variety of 599s, F12s, and 812s, it was a total shock to me that starting this car would be just as civil as starting a Civic. There are no angry howls on startup, and the engine revs in this shockingly smooth manner, unlike the modern V12s, which are also phenomenal, but have a hyper-aggressive attitude and huge horsepower numbers that make them a bit intimidating to use casually. This Ferrari is undoubtedly special. And even with the market driving the price of all 550s, I would leave you with a few words from our dear friend Ferris Bueller.
It is so choice. If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on Inside the Lab. If you enjoyed this episode of Inside the Lab, hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. It really helps. Let us know what you think about the 550 Barchetta in the comments below. Do you think the 550 has aged well? Do you think enthusiasts are looking at manual cars through rose-tinted lenses? Do you think Ferrari will stop making V12 GT cars anytime soon? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.